Now, the Democratic perspective on the Iran conflict. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine sits on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees. Senator, thanks for your time.
Absolutely,
you heard
right.
Senator Cotton on Iran. Your response?
Well, look, was Soleimani a despicable killer? Yes, he was. And is Iran a bad actor? Yes, they are. But the question is, should the United States be at war with Iran? And President Trump, in a series of back-and-forth escalations in the last 18 months, have brought us to that place. Now, some of my colleagues may earnestly believe that it would be a good idea for us to be at war with Iran. Many of us don't think it's a good idea, but we should all be able to agree that we shouldn't be at war unless Congress has a debate and vote. That's what the Constitution requires, and frankly, that's what our troops deserve. They deserve to know that there's a political consensus by the legislative body that this is a mission in the national interest, and there's no shortcuts. And I think that's why Republicans came out of the briefing today so angry, because the White House briefers were very dismissive of the notion that Congress should have anything to say about this.
And I know you have a war powers resolution of your own. We talked about the House version being voted on tomorrow. And now you have the support of Senators Rand Paul and Mike Lee as of tonight. But Representative Mark Meadows from North Carolina, he tweeted this a couple days ago. Number of drone strikes by President Obama's administration, 571. But very conveniently, you only hear Speaker Pelosi and Democrats calling for limiting the president's war powers when it's Donald Trump who uses a drone strike to take out Qasem Soleimani. President Obama's administration frequently conducted airstrikes in Syria. Pelosi was silent. No calls for congressional authorization. The feigned hypocritical outrage you're seeing from Democrats now is because a Republican is in the White House.
Well,
fair criticism?
You know, Brett, I actually don't think it's fair. You're right on the number of drone strikes that President Obama took. But remember, President Obama had a congressional authorization, the 2001 authorization that the Bush administration, the Obama administration, and the Trump administration all maintained.
The AUMF.
The AUMF, that was sufficient to cover the attacks against terrorist groups. And again, once you have congressional authorization, the president doesn't need to get our permission for this or that strike.
So you don't consider Soleimani a terrorist?
I don't. There is not a war authorization against Iran. He is an official in Iran. The administration has not claimed that the 2001 authorization covers him. Unless we declare war on Iran, we can't be striking their officials, and especially not striking them in Iraq when Iraq has not given us permission to wage military action on their own soil.
Sure. But
if there was an authorization against Iran, it would be very different.
The AUMF also didn't give the Obama administration the right to go after a terrorist who was an American citizen, right? I mean,
the question about whether Anwar al-Awlaki was an enemy combatant, that was a thorny legal question. I actually believed that the rationale was that, yeah, he was an enemy combatant. He was part of the terrorist groups that were authorized under the 2001 authorization, and when he put himself in the position of enemy combatant, then he was subject to that authorization. What we don't have in Iran is we don't have an authorization. Today in the briefing, the administration is not claiming that the 2001 authorization covered the attack on Soleimani. They're just claiming Article 2 power. So my war powers resolution, it doesn't say that the president's strike was unlawful. It just says we're in hostilities. It's not covered by a congressional authorization. So under the War Powers Act, we have the ability to bring forward the privilege motion and say, stop the hostilities against Iran unless one of two things happens. There is truly the need to eminently defend the United States from attack, or Congress passes an authorization. Under either of those scenarios, the United States could act, but we can't act without that.
Right. Somebody sitting at home on the couch looks at this. It took out this big terrorist who's causing all this trouble. Yes, he was an Iranian military official, but he was stirring the pot throughout the Middle East for a long time and killing American troops and personnel. He's taken out, and the response by the Iranians is to hit some buildings in Iraq, no U.S. casualties.
Thank
Why
God.
somebody at home?
Thank God.
Why would somebody at home say, what's wrong with that?
Well, if we could tell that somebody at home, or, you know, troops, I got a kid in the military, that's all it's going to be, then maybe there's nothing wrong with it. But the challenge that we're going to have, Brett, is this. You know, we were within minutes of a missile strike against Iran last summer, and then it got called off at the last minute, and then there was a de-escalation, and then we've escalated again. America has a red line. Don't kill any of our people. But Iran has a similar red line, and the U.S. has engaged in battlefield activity against Iran.
Right. But is it possible, Senator, is it possible that these very tense days could somehow lead to some new negotiations, some way, shape, or form?
My prayer is that they do. I think what we need to do is de-escalate and look at that negotiation. And in my view, the framers knew a lot about war, and they knew that the best antidote to unnecessary escalation is deliberation. And, you know, in deliberation in the Senate, Tom Cotton is going to make his case, and he's a persuasive guy, and I'm going to make my case, and I'm a persuasive guy, and we'll do a better job of reaching the right decision if it's not just one person making the decision.
Senator, as I did with Senator Cotton, I'm going to ask you a question about impeachment.
Yep,
there are some of your colleagues, including Senators Feinstein, Blumenthal, Manchin, Tester, and Coons on the Democratic side, who say to Nancy Pelosi, it's time to send over these articles of impeachment. It's time to move on. The House said one of the reasons they voted on impeachment like they did is because it was urgent, it was necessary, it was fast, had to happen because there was a threat to the election in 2020. Now it's been 3 weeks. How do you come down on this?
So, Brett, here's what I have to say. I don't give the House advice, but I'll tell you what I think. I fully expect that we're going to be in an impeachment trial very soon.
Like days?
I think it's going to be days. That's what my gut is telling me. I don't have any inside intel. And I also believe that when we take that oath to do impartial justice, there is no way to do that without hearing from people like a John Bolton, who has said, I have relevant information that hasn't been disclosed. Please subpoena me. I don't think you can do impartial justice without the individuals and documents that bear directly on the questions in the two impeachment articles.
We'll see how that comes down. Senator Kaine, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Brett.